First order of business is to Resolution 23 minutes. Resolution 23-171 to accept the minutes of August 2nd, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Discussion. All in favor? Let's go. Thank you. And there's no public hearing. Public comments. If anybody in the audience wishes to have a public comment, this is the time to speak, or take the time to reserve to speak to a item that's on the agenda. Does anybody here wish to speak or reserve time? Seeing none. Workshop, St. Albans Fire Department. Is there anyone?
Representatives from St. Albans Fire. The chief is here with his wife, and also Andy Harding is going to do a brief presentation on their EMS program.
Thank you.
You can step right up here.
Step right up here.
To the mic there.
I think I can speak loud enough here, everybody can hear me. My name's,
The problem is if you're not speaking into the mic, the people on the internet can't hear you.
okay.
I think you'll be able to catch it from there.
So my name's Andrew Harding. I've been a firefighter with St. Albans since 95. First got licensed as an EMS professional in 99 through what was Heartland St. Albans Ambulance. They did a program where they trained me. I've gone from there. I've been a paramedic since 2003, working professionally for the last 20 years doing that, as well as a registered nurse for the ICU and for the ER at Eastern Maine. Due to a shortage of EMS professionals before and during COVID, we've been having longer and longer response times to St. Albans, which is a problem for us and for our citizens. We have, through a gray area of the employees of Northern Light that live in our area, allows us to respond to somewhat with the 5 of us that are licensed in town. Managed to throw a hodgepodge of first aid kits together, doing the best we can to respond. With our call volume increasing, we had 138 EMS responses to St. Albans last year. 38 of them, which we actually went to as firefighters to assist. Usually when we go to assist, it's because CPR is in progress or they need help lifting a patient. We also respond to all car accidents in town, whether it's just a car deer or somebody's injured, and we're finding more and more of those calls. What we're looking for today is to actually advance ourselves to become an actual legal rescue with a separate tone from the fire department, and hopefully get enough money to get everything stocked, and hopefully to start training some more EMTs so there's more than just 5 of us. That's the basis of what I've got. Any questions?
I asked in complete ignorance, and I apologize for it.
That's fine.
So you have, for vehicles, what do you have?
So currently we have basically a first aid kit and an AED on one of our aging fire trucks.
Aging fire trucks?
Aging fire
Okay.
trucks, yes. That particular truck, we actually put over $10,000 into it this year just to keep it on the road.
So are you aspiring to have a fully equipped ambulance? Or
What we're actually looking for to start with, because with 5 people in town that are licensed, there's no way we could run an ambulance. We'd never be able to respond to all the calls. What we're looking for is possibly whether it be a used ambulance or I know a lot of first responder squads that I've worked with over the years actually get like retired police cruisers. Mm-hmm. Something that they can put the equipment in, put lights and sirens on it, and respond to calls. We're not looking for anything brand spanking new right now. I mean, you're talking $750,000 to buy an ambulance and stock it. We're not looking for that right now. Mm-hmm. That's hopefully down the road from now, but that's not what we're looking for today.
Just a little bit of an explanation as in terms of how this is connected towns within St. Albans, bordering St. Albans, are you guys going to be able to, with that licensure and the credentials to do this, assist your,
Yes, so we've talked with the fire department members. So for instance, like Heartland is our closest neighbor. We work closest with Heartland, we have for years. So for instance, if they're waiting for a truck to come from Skowhegan as the closest ambulance, if requested, we would respond to Heartland and help them out.
Plus we cover from a good, quite a large portion.
but the connecting towns or the towns you guys share mutual aid with are possibilities for you guys to respond?
It is our hope that we would be able to continue to honor all of our current mutual aid towns. When needed, when requested, we would respond, yes.
With this service that you're
Yes,
looking to get?
Absolutely.
Sip?
Looking at what you need for money here, it doesn't show anything on insurance. Now, you're gonna have liability insurance if you're gonna
Most of,
roll your vehicles.
yes, most of that comes in with the insurance that we already have for the town. There is a slight increase, but it's really not that much more. Because we already have liability on the vehicles. Obviously, if we get a new vehicle, there'd be more there.
Right.
It's like $160 a year to register the vehicle with Maine EMS. Beyond that, I want to say it's not more than $60 a year for the liability insurance on the members, which St. Albans already carries some of that for the fire department.
Okay.
John?
Again, asking in complete ignorance, but, so, this service that you're doing, it's not the fire department, it's sort of an adjunct to, it's not an ambulance service.
Nope,
So if somebody's having a heart attack in St. Albans and calls 911,
yeah,
you obviously don't have an ambulance, so you're not going to respond.
no, we are going to respond. We would, if.
As a assistance,
Yes,
all right, now, my follow-up question,
response.
is that like throughout the state, is that a procedure, service, or system that's in
so
place?
that's what the first responders units do.
Okay.
So, the first one I can give you off the top of my head, so the town of Glenburn, okay, had a private ambulance service for years that failed. So they now have an old cruiser that they got, I don't know where they got it, it's red, so. They stocked it basically with what you see on that list, right down to the cardiac monitors. So they will respond to any EMS calls in town, do whatever they have to, whether it's one or two guys that show up. They start doing vitals, they start doing treatments. For that, they get an ambulance that either comes out of Levant is their primary, the second would be a Northern Light truck out of Bangor, third is their Northern Light truck coming out of Corinth, and then last but not least would be Bangor Fire.
And I assume this is on the increase, this type of arrangement, where ambulance services are,
Yes, it is,
Getting
because
few and far between.
unfortunately, we just lost the Herman Rescue just shut down. So they're no longer responding to 911 calls.
so the idea is to train EMTs, paramedics, or whatever, medical people on the scene as quickly as possible.
Correct.
And keep things going until an ambulance can get there or
Correct.
some other rescue
Yeah.
vehicle. Okay, thank
We
you.
responded to, I didn't look at the numbers, a number of like cardiac arrests. We actually had to buy 2 brand-new AEDs last fiscal year, and we had to already buy extra batteries for it because we've used it so often that we're draining our batteries. That's why that big ticket number, I'm sure you guys have all seen that $40,000 bill on the bottom of it.
I saw 408,000, that's why I just looked at it.
Oh, I must
No,
have typed
you
something.
did.
Okay.
No, it's 40,891.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a picture of it on the back, and what that particular device does, it works similar to an AED. So if somebody's in cardiac arrest, we can shock them, hopefully bring them back. All levels of EMS can now do what we call a 12 lead or like an EKG. So if you're having chest pain, we can put this on, look at it. This particular monitor, if we can get the agreements with Northern Light, would allow us to actually send a copy of that directly to the physician in the ER. So they could see exactly what we see while we're still 20, 25 minutes away from the hospital.
Yeah, go.
So are you familiar with the first responder setup we have in Canaan at all?
Yes, I've actually done some training with King.
Is what you're looking to do is similar?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
very, very similar.
And secondly, the vehicle that you're looking at using right now that you currently own,
Yep.
are you going to be able to make all of these items work inside of that vehicle?
No.
Okay, so you're gonna have a auxiliary vehicle like what you're using now?
No, we would actually have to add a toolbox of some type on top of the truck in order to get all this equipment on it. The problem with this particular truck that we're using right now that has our AED and our first aid kits on it, it's also our cascade system. Basically what that does is it refills air bottles at a fire. That truck is the first truck out of town and the last truck back into town. And that truck goes everywhere. We've gone to, even when the rest of the fire department doesn't respond, that particular truck responded to Athens when they had the multiple mill fires, that type of stuff. That one also carries our Jaws of Life on it, so if that goes out of town. So unfortunately, that particular vehicle already has two major jobs to it. But it's the only truck we have any spare room on at all. To go full licensure, to be licensed by the state, everything has to be on that particular vehicle. And we're basically looking at getting a custom-made toolbox to mount on the side of it.
And I guess lastly, I actually had three things. I counted all the way to three today. As far as the town of St. Albans, where are you guys at with them as far as funding this project?
Like every small town, we're doing the best we can with our budget. It was brought up at our town meeting this year to a discussion during an open session that the fire department was interested in exploring this, and we've had overwhelming support of that. However, the financial support has not been there as of yet.
This,
Thank you.
is this for 1 year, or what is it?
That is to stock the ambulance.
This is just to get it up and running. So do you have any notion of how much it would cost to keep this going year by year, or?
So a lot of that would come in with a written contract with Northern Light. So generally speaking, what happens, I'm sure with Canaan and either Reddington or Clinton, usually when we respond to a first responder service like this, if I use a couple of Band-Aids and a roll of gauze, when the ambulance shows up, they transport the patient, they give me those items back. So most of this is a big startup cost. You're probably looking at a couple $100 a year for supplies that aren't replaced. So if we bandage somebody up, I mean, if you bandage somebody up after a car accident, they refuse to go to the hospital. There's, at this point, the way Medicare, Medicaid, and the insurance companies, they don't allow us to bill for non-transporting services. Most companies similar to Northern Light will give it's an assistance fee in the contract you sign with them. Most places get $75 to $50 a call.
So you actually generate some, I wouldn't call it revenue, but you get paid for this?
Very little.
Very little.
Very little. If we get anything back out of it through Northern Light, it's probably going to cover the expenses of the truck, the vehicle taken, and maybe some of the medical supplies. The biggest burden is going to be on the town of St. Albans for the payroll.
And that's now because you're not a first responder.
Correct. We still, even as a first responder squad, most insurances, you can't bill for that unless you transport it.
Okay.
So, like I said, most of the equipment that we're going to use, the reason we looked at the particular cardiac monitor is because that's what Northern Light just purchased for all of their divisions. So by using that particular item, if we put pads on the patient, when Northern Light comes, they would be able to give us new ones. We would give the ones that stay on the patient. if that happens now, I believe they said they would supply us with, if we keep the current AEDs we have, you can buy a adapter that would allow to go from pad to pad, so that they would be able to replace our pads and give us one of those adapters, so that we can still work together. Northern Light is trying very hard to work with us with this endeavor, because it benefits them as well.
Given that, is there some thought or notion that, the big ticket item here, the $40,000 monitor, if sort of a match deal where everyone kicked in a little bit on that to get it to you folks, we contributed some, the hospital did, and maybe the town?
I haven't put this proposal in front of the town as of yet. This was kind of something we did, I don't want to say spur of the moment, in the last 6 or 8 weeks or so.
Yeah, sure.
But it's definitely, if you guys are willing, we can definitely go in front of the town and see where we could go with it. In all honesty, 90% of the equipment we have has either been donated by Northern Light or the firefighters have taken our own money to buy equipment. It's something the fire department itself, 5 years ago, 5 or 10 years ago, if you'd even talked about this, the guys would have laughed us out of the station. The fact is, we're waiting longer and longer for ambulances to respond. And it's a definite need that we have in our area.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we could do, but we haven't developed a method of distributing the community benefit funds in an official process. You could, once we have that process completed, you'd be able to fill out an application
Okay.
and look at it that way. So that would be one avenue that we could open to you. Yeah.
Hey, I'm just gonna throw this out there, something that would make me comfortable in this situation would be, let's say you approached the town and said, okay, the county is willing to pony, and I'm not speaking for anybody, just throwing this out there anecdotally. The county is willing to pony up 30 grand if the town is willing to pony up the other 10 to make this thing work. Have some buy-in there, something to that effect. That would be, for me, that would be comfortable if you could come up with some sort of proposal from the town or something like that.
I can definitely work on that. Like I said, this was, I don't want to say spur of the moment thing, just something that's brought to our attention, kind of put this together to see where we could get. But I mean, if that's something that's a possibility, then absolutely I have no problem chasing after the town to see if they're willing to put in a little bit more.
Yeah, it would have to be something that where there'd be matching funds, but again, the avenue would most likely be through the community benefit process and an application that may or may not be accepted. It would depend at that time what was going on. And, but I would be loath to put a burden on the taxpayers because then would be obligated to all the towns, and then would also be pretty much double dipping with your municipalities.
I wasn't following you on that, so.
I wasn't either,
That's one of the reasons.
As far as double dipping,
Taxing twice, because if we use tax dollars, it would be property tax dollars, so it'd be not only property tax dollars for the whole county, it would be property tax dollars from St. Albans as
Yeah,
well.
but if it's coming out of the TIF for the community benefit,
That's
that's
different, that's a whole different, that's a different thing.
I-
That's why I said I was loath to use property tax
Right.
dollars, because of that.
Right.
got you, okay.
Sorry.
I would just say.
As opposed to using,
Yeah, I'd rather use the
Okay.
the community benefit.
I understand.
I would just suggest that it seems, I don't know, I agree with our chairman that we're sort of trying to get some more structure and organization to our ability to dispense some of the money that we have to give to worthwhile purposes, but I'm just saying, in my opinion, your ask is a very reasonable one and is sort of a direct bullseye hit on the kind of criteria that we are looking at when we get around to giving out the money. And I hope if we decide that is the case, I hope and particularly if we get some feedback from you on going halvesies or some sort of split with other people, matching funds and that kind of thing, I think we could act fairly quickly on this. I would hope, I hope we could, that would be my opinion.
I will tell you, if I went back to town and applied for the licensure today, it would take Maine EMS almost 6 months to get us licensed. So their wheels turn really slow. But any amount that we can talk about, and like I said, I will take the same proposal to the town, see what they're willing to do, and obviously communicate with Scott as far as where we're going with that.
So to submit that for the licensing,
No, go ahead.
so submit that for the licensing, do you have to have all these pieces in place ahead of time? Okay.
Yes.
So the sooner this happens, the sooner you can put in for the licensing, and then it's still another.
Correct.
Right. But would you be able to, you'd still be able to operate under the situation that you're in now, and you would actually have some more supplies and equipment and things like that to
Correct.
do a better job of what you're doing now? Okay.
As of right now, like I said, there's myself as a paramedic, and then I've got 2 basic EMTs in town that work full-time for Northern Light. Right? By doing that, it allows us to, and agreement with our bosses, has allowed us to work as EMS providers in town. There's certain things that we can do. I mean, I can
Right.
train anybody in first aid, but like a car accident victim, for instance, putting on a C-collar is something that, unless you're trained and licensed, you're not legally allowed to do that. Same thing with dispensing oxygen. It requires an EMT license or better to do that. So part of this, I know I said part of it, currently to send somebody to school for EMS is like $1,500 per basic EMT, which again is something that, you know, to get up and I'd love to get 6 or 8 more people licensed, and then maybe 10 years down the road, come back and look at an actual transporting ambulance. We had one for years in Heartland, St. Albans combined, and unfortunately with the shortages that everybody deals with, that went to wayside.
Well, you said that Herman shut down.
Yes.
Is any of their equipment available to you?
Not as of yet. They're still trying, so they're no longer doing 911, but I guess they're keeping their doors open by doing transfers.
Okay.
As of yet, I'm pretty good friends with the guy in charge of it. And yes, I've been harassing him to see if they were looking at selling anything.
Yeah.
As of right now, they're not looking to sell any. They've got 3 ambulances. And by all means, I'd love to get my hands on one of them and get into town, but again,
Yeah.
simply getting it and then dealing with the licensure and stuff like that is difficult. And there's no way I would even attempt to run a transporting ambulance service with 5 people.
Well, if you became an EMS,
Yep,
you'd be also aiding other towns for your mutual?
absolutely.
So one of the things that would help your cause is going to those other towns and having them say that they would support you
Okay,
financially.
we can definitely try that.
So
Yeah.
that'd be a big lift.
So we don't have a particular time schedule on deciding this, but
No.
sounds like.
Should we give him an idea of what we'd be looking at for a match so that he goes back to the town with this? He has a specific figure that we would, you know, be willing to.
Well, I agree with Robert, our chairman, that we're sort of discussing the ways we spend our money, but as I said earlier, I think we don't have to bring everything to a complete stop pending the final outcome of that process if we think this is within our ballpark. And, I mean, I would say we could decide this by our next meeting, I would hope, but that's my own personal opinion.
I mean, like, as far as the financial stuff, I mean, again, St. Albans is gonna bear the brunt of any replacement of supplies, all the payroll. insurances and such like that, that'll all come, and then regardless if we go to Heartland or Elmira or Ripley or Pittsfield into Newport, doesn't matter where we go. St. Albans is going to be still paying our payroll by any means.
And this is a current payroll or a,
It would be in addition to what we do.
in addition to what you're doing now? Okay.
We get paid basically by the minute that we're on a call. So if we go out and we're out for, it usually go by 15-minute increments, I think is what they actually pay us by. So, if we end up going to Heartland with a mutual aid, we're not gonna, bill the town of Heartland for, the 3 or 4 people that go to do something like that. That kind of comes under our contract with our mutual aid agreements. Whether we look at a new mutual aid agreement with them for an EMS response of some type, that's definitely, we can start getting into the works for sure.
So this is sort of a startup kind of thing. It's
Yes.
creating capacity to do valuable work. It's a one-shot deal. You're not asking us for perpetual funding on this.
No.
And these dollars go a long way because you can get replacement equipment from the hospital.
99% of our
Okay.
supplies will be replenished by
Okay.
the ambulance that
All right.
responds.
Good. No, Sounds good to me.
And again, the downside of it, you might be looking maybe $100 a year, maybe 200 at the most, that, we bandage somebody up
Yeah.
that falls or something like that. The other side of things, we have to, I have to sign contracts with Northern Light, we have to sign contracts with our medical director. There's still a lot of steps to go. I guess at this point, it's futile to go any further until I have the equipment and a place to put it. So whether we modify the fire truck we have now and try to get everything on there first, and then go forward, it's just, I guess more than anything else today is an idea of what we're looking at for cost. Any help we can get at all is greatly appreciated. But it's just where we're headed, in hopes to help, again, the other towns around us in the county. We're not opposed to helping others around us. So,
Very good.
Well, thank you very much.
any questions?
No?
Very good.
Thank you.
You've successfully piqued our interest.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to workshop number 2, unless there's any further questions for,
I don't have any further questions.
thank you very much. Oh, you have your presentation.
We're there with me.
Okay,
Moral sport.
all right, thank you. We're going to make you,
Thank you.
all right. Workshop number 2, deliberation of the Flynn of Emden abatement appeal. Is Mr. Flynn here?
He is not. There is a Mr. Flynn here, but not the.
Not-
Oh, okay.
of the issue.
All right, so we can still deliberate. And I will pick up where I left off last time, where I had said that I thought that the town of Emden had fairly much cured the situation by realigning the, I forgot the term, the rating from B to C, and that brought it down substantially, so I think that was a pretty good cure and for the town of Emden. I had also looked at some listings in the area, but those were unrealized real estate listings, to give you an idea of what the asks were for real estate. So I came to the conclusion that for myself, I think that Emden's offer was a fair offer, going back 3 years. So that's how I've landed on the situation.
I agree with that, and to speak boldly, I don't think that Mr. Flynn met the burden of proof for what he's asking for. So I do think that bringing it down to a C is a fair assessment, and it should be
Anyone else?
Well, I concur with Commissioner Seekins and you. I feel that we had a hearing, he had the burden of proof. He submitted documents which we have all read in great care, and additional documents, the testimony from the witnesses, and I have concluded that I am not persuaded that he is being unfairly treated or unfairly assessed, or that his assessment is way out of line as a manifest error or injustice, so I feel we should deny his appeal. I guess is the proper, that's what we're doing, right?
I'm with you guys.
What he said.
What he said. Okay, I would request that we made a motion to the sense that we deny the appeal and, or some other.
Well, I suggest we go, all those in favor of denying, raise your hand, and all those in favor of sustaining.
You're gonna-
Put it to a vote?
We would have to make a motion and have a second. and put it-
Do we need a motion for this? Okay. I'll do a motion. I move that we deny the appeal based on the record we have in front of us.
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion? I would only ask that in this denial of the appeal, that the town of Emden does reduce and hold to the C rating.
Just a point of order. You're kind of doing two things here. His appeal was based on a certain valuation, and his request in writing was for a $150,000 reduction. So that's essentially what you're denying.
Yeah,
But I don't think then you can turn and hold Emden accountable for the documentation they provided. I would prefer to see a motion that says you're denying the abatement, but turning it back to
right.
the town of Emden to negotiate with Mr. Flynn, rather than setting a number in your motion.
Right.
And the denial is based on
Based on the original.
the reduction of the rating.
And we're still in discussion, so we could have an amendment to the motion, to that assent, to,
Well, if I amended my motion to say, I move that we deny the appeal and refer the matter back to the town for further proceedings not inconsistent herewith.
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 I might polish that up a little bit.
But I don't think we have, to- I mean, it seems to me we're just, I mean, my personal view is, I'm not persuaded that by his case. What the town does later, it's really up to the town. That's sort of a new thing.
Right.
And if there's further proceedings as a result of that, well, that, we deal with that as it comes. But for now, we're just saying no.
I would second his amended motion.
Okay.
Can you write that up for me?
And so is there any further discussion on the amended motion? Then I'll ask for a vote on the amended motion. All in favor? Okay, that carries. And now we're back to the motion as amended. Any further discussion on the motion as amended? All in favor? And that carries.
Unanimous, all attending.
So thank you very much.
So just as a clarification, what I'll do is I will send a letter and a finding of fact report, which basically says what you did in your hearing and then what you did today. I'll send that out to Mr. Flynn.
And to the town of
And to
Emden.
Emden, yep.
Thank you. And purchasing policy review.
I wanted to bring this to your attention. We've set it up as a workshop today, based on some questions that were asked at the last meeting regarding bids for police vehicles. And so in your packets, you should have my notes that I put together on the current procurement policy for federal awards. And this was the only written document that we could find that was actually approved by the commissioners last December. My understanding is that this was put together in a response to a federal request. When federal funds are available, the feds would like to see your procurement policy and make sure it aligns with their policies. Many municipalities had to do this with ARPA funds, and so Somerset County was no different. So that's essentially what this document was created for. My notes on this is, it's the only purchasing policy in writing that I can find in the county, and I had Leanne help and Patrick help, and this was the only one. So if we're talking about written policies for purchasing items, this is all we have. And I have some concerns with it, and I noted them in my notes. One is that it identifies the department head as the purchasing agent. That's, state law says the county administrator is the purchasing agent. My other concern was there is no requirements for competitive bidding on purchases less than $10,000. State law says you have to have some form of competitive bidding, not a formal one, but at least a form for $2,500 and more. My other concern was between $10,000 and $250,000, the normal procedure is to informally solicit quotes. Now, again, this was written for federal grants, but it also could be read that that's how we would operate for purchases under $250,000. And then it states that the sealed bid process is only required for purchases above $250,000. So what else I put in here was essentially some references to state statute that talk about the county administrator and talk about that $2,500 threshold. And then I put on the last page some definitions. And so essentially what I'm asking the board is, are you satisfied with this policy as it is? Or would you like to start with this policy and add a little bit more structure to it so that it can be both a federal procurement policy and exist as our procurement policy? If that is what you'd like to do, I'd be glad to present that to you at the next meeting.
Sounds like you think it needs some changes.
Well, I think there's, on that last page, I put the definitions, and I really think that you need a definition that says that you are going to take a bid that is the most advantageous to the county.
Right.
It's not necessarily always a low bid, but you take into consideration
Advantageous, right.
quality and specs and warranty, delivery, demonstrated service record, so on and so forth. Also, to define competitive bidding. Competitive bidding is just getting a couple of quotes, and you can do that on the phone in about 10 minutes. But there should be an explanation of what's a formal bid, where you actually would put an RFP out and post it on your website and have a list of service providers that you would contact. And then there's informal bids, where you can simply just make those phone calls and say, okay, we tried to get the best price. And then, of course, sole source is pretty obvious. It's the only, if there's only one provider of that. So,
John?
Tim, I feel you have a lot of experience in this area with your past experience in Madison and elsewhere. And I can make this a motion if you want, but what I would suggest is that you draft a new policy that incorporates the modifications and changes that are really required by statute, and also make common sense and come up with a very simple, straightforward, maybe consult with your department heads. I'm not telling you how to do your job, but just try to figure out a really simple thing where anybody in any department can look at this and say, I need to get 400 erasers for my, whatever it is, then they know very quickly how they go about doing it.
Yep.
And if you could just give that to us for a review, I bet, I'm guessing we might have a few changes, but I bet that's going to do it.
Yep.
So that's what I'd like. I can make that a motion if
I
you.
don't think we need.
We don't need to make a motion. All you have to do is bring it to us in a workshop next time, and also have a resolution on the agenda for it as well.
yep.
So we can,
Is that enough time between now and the next meeting to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So that
even though he's going to be out of the country.
that's
Still.
well, not to tip my hand too much, but I may have already written a draft.
I didn't know that.
But now it's really a matter of communicating with the other department heads, because there are specific intricacies to each one of the departments and how they do things, the way the jail does things and the sheriff's office, and so we really need to make sure it's a team effort before I bring it to you and everybody's on the same page.
Very good.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're going to review the bids of the police cruiser. for the UT. Let's see what we have here for bids. I've got,
So you have 2 bids for the cruiser, that other bid is for the compressor.
that's for that. And 2 bids for the cruiser. See how this thing works. Don't cut my hand off.
It's a knife, Mr. Chairman, you're supposed to use it away from you.
Yeah, well,
You're supposed to stick the little.
You don't remember scouts, huh?
it's been a long time since I was a Boy Scout. Besides, if I go this way, I might cut somebody.
Your arms.
No, this is, thank goodness.
Frisbee it across the.
Yeah. Okay, this is, instruction to bidders, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4. The 2024 Chevrolet Silverado four-wheel drive crew cab.
Who's this from?
This is from Height. And the, if I can find the number, we'll get some numbers for you. Here we are. We have bid item 1, 2024 Chevrolet Silverado, four-wheel drive crew cab, 147-inch work truck, $55,195 for the total bid price of $55,197. There's no extended warranty included or extended warranty specs,
Question,
so.
any specifications on there as to whether it's pursuit ready or not?
It's, follows our specifications,
Okay. Just-
so. Let's see. Deviations, fully. There are no deviations from the specifications.
And that was the Chevy?
That's the Chevy from Height.
Okay.
I'll just, and this is from Varney. Let's see if I can, now that I've learned my lesson, go the other way. See? This is all done for the audience to learn and appreciate. Okay. And we have from Varney Chevrolet, 2024 Chevy Silverado, four-wheel drive crew cab, 147 inches, work truck for $54,725. There's no extended warranty or extended warranty specs included. And location of warranty service is any Chevy GM dealer.
Just doing it.
Roughly.
I'm gonna give you the.
And I'm going to see if we've got anything
470,
else in here.
What'd you come up with?
470 if I heard him right.
There are no deviations.
472,
It depends on if you said 95 or 97. I heard both.
Did you figure the tax into that?
There's no tax.
No, I didn't.
So, Chief, would you like a resolution on this?
Yeah, was there any deviations from the department? Is this deviation sheet that they fill out? Did they list any deviations?
No, the deviation sheet was signed as no deviations
I'm hoping.
on both of them. Yeah.
How about color?
How about time?
I don't know that I saw the color, but,
Saw a picture of a black truck.
yeah, I think that's just a stock.
Okay.
So, I imagine if we specified a color, it would be that color.
There is a color specified on it.
Then there's no deviation, so
Right.
whatever the color spec is, then it will be, that should be the color.
How about availability? Are they both ready to go?
I would imagine they would be.
First,
Our specs were 4 months, right?
4 months,
Right.
Okay.
4 months of the specifications, and it is white in color, and that is on the specification list.
And there was no deviation certified,
Okay.
so.
Are we supposed to decide now?
No, I think we decide a little further in.
Okay.
If
Quick
it's a-
question. So, no deviations, so that means that these meet the specs that all of the other vehicles that we have, or the other vehicle that we looked at was, okay, so they're pursuit ready, all of the aspects they need to be approved?
Yep, here's, there it is. There's the, so you can look at those.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to add this as a resolution later on in the meeting?
If everybody's ready,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yep.
we'll be fine, we'll add it as a resolution. I think everybody's good for that. You have a resolution number for us?
We would make it
176?
176, yes.
While we're at it, is it the pleasure if we make a resolution for Eastern Fire? It's the only bid, so,
Sure.
and we might not even, you know, to approve or not to approve for 177?
That's good.
Scares me how he uses that. It scares me how he uses that.
If I had my knife, it would be different, but. Fire, Eastern Fire, this is for the bid for the compressor in the courthouse. We've got one proposal, and that bid is for, quote, $4,200. And it's to supply and install a new Jenny 3/4 horsepower base mount 115-volt, single-phase air compressor, pump and motor only, to replace the existing air compressor.
This, I can't remember what this does, this air compressor.
This keeps the pressure
Compresses
on
air.
the sprinkler system.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So we had the sprinkler system tested, and once it passed the test, we
Right.
felt comfortable about reinstalling a new compressor.
And can I ask maybe, Seb, is it unusual just to get like one bid on some kind of equipment like this? Is this just?
There's not a lot of companies around that do that, and especially in this area.
Yeah, Eastern Fire is the major one,
Yeah, and there's probably not a lot of variation in the.
yeah. Except that they do say that you will need to have an electrician available to disconnect and the existing compressor and wire the new compressor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
getting inmate to do that.
Quality electric.
That's not unusual, and just
yeah.
Eastern Fire is the one that inspects and maintains our system, so they're the one that's most familiar with it.
Well, I'm ready to vote on that when it comes up at the end of the year.
End of the year, end of the, today's session?
Yeah,
Okay.
all in favor? Late.
So, all right, so we'll make, add that as resolution 23-177. Compressor bid. And review of legal expenses.
Commissioner Seekins asked about this at the last meeting, and so Patrick was able to put together a spreadsheet that I put in your packets that basically recounts the last 10 years of legal expenses spread out through the different budget sections and departments that utilize legal expenses. While Patrick was on vacation, I took the liberty of averaging out some of these, and so I created an additional piece to your packets that essentially shows for each of those departments, the 5-year average and the 10-year average are pretty much within lines of what we budget for it. And so I'm not sure, I'll defer to Commissioner Seekins, was your intention to see whether or not it would be more advantageous to hire an attorney on staff, or just to see where we were spending our money?
To see where we were spending our money and to kind of look at where we need an attorney and where we don't, to try to maybe save some expenditure in terms of yearly expenses related to that, because I feel there's places where we don't need an attorney, and unless we feel we need one, we can get one. I don't think we need to staff an attorney.
Okay.
I just think that overall, there are places that, you know, we may not necessarily need the existing attorney in terms of that expenditure, so I could give you an example of that if you want, but, you know, it's like during the union negotiations, I don't think we need an attorney sitting here. I think we're all capable to do that unless there was a situation that came up that we needed to
Then you can
confer with an attorney related to those situations. So just looking at that overall and seeing where we can cut expenditures, where we don't need an attorney, because I feel like we as commissioners should be able to make decisions, and if we all together feel like there's a legal issue with something, then we should be able to get an attorney and have it done, so.
No, and I think it was a good idea to have take a measure of where we are,
Yeah.
so.
And I would think that, something I want to look at maybe in 6 months and see if things are different, because my sense is that maybe we're less trigger happy when it comes to calling an attorney. Of course, legal fees are a subject that was near and dear to my heart in the past. Now, I see them as anathema, but I feel we're less trigger happy, and I think that some of these big ones that hopefully everything's going to calm down a little bit, I guess, and maybe won't be a big problem. I'm hopeful, maybe not.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. New agenda items, commissioners only? Good. Okay. Finance reporting.
Well, not much has changed. I'm actually still taking out and being on vacation. The numbers that I gave you for the year end, maybe changed by $1,000 or so. The auditors come in first next week, so we're pretty well done with FY 2023, moving on to 2024.
Wonderful.
Do you have any specific questions or anything?
Not at the moment.
Well, that's good to me.
Anybody else?
I'm all set.
Okay. Good. Thank you. And administrator report.
I submitted some bullet points for you, and also I put an attachment in there just to kind of let you know the direction that I was going with some of these community benefit program projects and creating an application structure and so forth. And I think the gentleman that was here from St. Albans Fire was an excellent example of what you could do with public service funds and that sort of thing in those categories. So that's certainly something, if you're interested, we can workshop at upcoming meetings
Yeah.
and talk a little bit more about that. I know Dave does an excellent job of keeping track of that, along with Christian, and he's already forwarded me some folks that are interested in applying for funds. So probably the sooner we have some structure, the easier that will be. Just a couple other points here. I was introduced to Aaron Benson with the Central Western Maine Workforce Development, and we were able to make we had some colleagues in common, and we were able to make some introductions there. I'm working with the sheriff to rework a contract for rubbish removal at the jail. Same contract does the jail, courthouse, and the comm center, and that current contract expired last year in August, and so we've been operating without a contract, and we need to get that solidified. So we should be able to get you that probably in the next month or so. Gilman Electric was here. They walked through the building with Nelson, taking a head count of all of the fluorescent lights in an effort to get a budget put together so that we can apply for some grant funds to do a replacement with LEDs throughout the courthouse. So we're starting there. So they'll give me a price of probably in the next couple of weeks. Boiler work. So in the warrant is our first half payment for the boiler replacement, so we're on their schedule. and they were here to do some look at the chimney liner. They'll have to put a 10-inch stainless steel liner all the way from the top to the bottom of the building, and that's a good 60 to 75 feet. So they had success, and they were able to run their test line, and it went all the way from the top, all the way down to the boiler room, so they're very pleased with that. So that progress, or that project really should be making progress here. Just a final note, you may have noticed on your way in, I had Nelson put some stickers, the county seal, on the glass doors, both here downstairs and upstairs. We had numerous occasions where people, at no fault of their own, had run into the glass. And so I was advised to check into the warranty on that, which I did. I checked with the installer, Portland Glass, and I also checked the warranty documents, and I don't think that'll do anything to void any warranties. And I also think it looks nice and professional. So that is about all I have to report. Any questions?
I have a question, actually, to Patrick. There was a grant for 70,000 plus. Is that still in the works?
Yes, we need that information to actually start the next step.
Okay, good.
So you will not be here for our next meeting?
Sure I will. Your next meeting is September 6th.
Okay. Well, I would like very much to workshop that TIF ideas that you've set forth in this. And as a side note to that, I'd like to workshop or discuss if we get any new feedback on the St. Albans thing, because it seems to me I'm in favor of that. Personally, it seems to me touch all the bases that we'd be looking at if we were going to, even if we had a more formal review process, but it might take us a while to do that. It sounds like we got to get going on that, so if we can, I'm suggesting that we could maybe act on that with a matching grant or some other thing. I think it's a good idea. Just saying.
Anything else? All set. And, Phil, it's been a long time since we've heard from you. You have any roadkill for us?
We have lots of road information.
James, you want to step up?
Yeah, let me go through this. Yeah, let me. I've got a whole list of things I've been adding to it throughout the day. Unfortunately.
One of those days.
The newest item we have is the boiler in the Rockwood Fire Department apparently has failed. I got an email today from Dell, and I dug up the paperwork on when we replaced it last time. I've given it to Seth for his review. 10 years ago, a couple months, we put in a new system, and when it was up to be serviced, it was not working and was pretty much at the end of its life. So we're going to get a quote from A. Robinson, who does our servicing. They did the installation of the previous unit. And I put a call into A. Robinson today to discuss why the unit we had failed. Now, a comment made to Dell was it was a 10-year unit, and it's lived 10 years, so it's at the end of its life. I don't remember it being a 10-year unit when we put it in, so I want to double check on that. So you'll get more updates on that next meeting. Cross these off as I get to that. We have another issue. Those bridges in Lexington. We get all of our bridges that we have that are county bridges, we get reports on from DOT, every year. And we received them this year, and they were certified mail. So I'm going like, uh-oh, that's a bad sign. So I made some phone calls, and Phil and I actually had a meeting. Turns out that the certified mail was just somebody new in position doing things differently. But we have received the weaknesses that we've had with bridges. One was reduced in weight, posted 25 tons. The other ones are, it's always guardrail
Where's that?
issues.
Where's that one
That's on the back road in Lexington.
in Lexington?
Yeah, all of these three that we're going to discuss are in Lexington today. The biggest one is over Upper Sandy, and that's a pretty good sized bridge. And we basically identified 4 needs. That bridge and the other bridge, which is right around the corner on Michael Stream on the back road, they all need, not culverts, they all need guardrails. And so that's going to be our last step. We're going to look at guardrails.
Is that because the guardrails fell off, or they just a new state requirement to have them?
We have never met their guidelines on where they should be for approach and departure. So on the Michael Stream Bridge, there are guardrails there, but that is a one-lane bridge, and the snowplow has knocked the guardrails loose, so they're kind of hanging on the edge of the bridge. So those need to be done. And the upper Sandy Stream Bridge, I don't think had guardrails on either approach or departure. It has rails on the bridge itself. But the four items were, the surface of the bridge was covered with sand and gravel from winter, sanding. That needed to be cleaned off. We've already achieved that. We've got the surface cleaned off. But there are cracks that run along each side of the bridge between the cement pad and the metal structure, and water is leaking down onto the I-beams underneath, causing some deterioration. So we're looking into sealing those cracks the whole way to keep any moisture on the bridge or going down to the round drain holes that they put in the bridge. We're also looking at, there's a section of the bridge that needs welding, probably a metal plater or something like that will take care of that one weak spot. And where the paint has come off, the exposed steel is starting to rust and just flake. And Jim was the DOT guy that we spoke to at a meeting. Both Phil and I had a meeting at the bridges. He recommended that we just scrape the exposed metal clean down to cleaner metal and then fluid film it. So I have contacted the person that we have most of our bridge work done, NF Luce, and he's going to go by and give me a quote on what he thinks it would cost. If it's much, obviously we'll need to go out to an RFP, so that's in the whole. Let's see, I've talked about. Like I said, I got to check these off because there's more and more added. Lake Moxie Road is the road that we share with the Forks. It's about 5.5 miles long. We have the middle 3.17, and the Forks has each end. Nobody's willing to plow that road for us. We have, our last contractor doesn't want it back. He's moving off into gravel work. He bought a gravel pit. We've contacted other contractors in the area. We put out an RFP on our website. We had no bid, no calls, no interest at all. So Caratunk is in a similar boat because the contractor we had also plowed the roads in Caratunk. They also have nobody to plow those roads. So Liz Caruso and I got together and we filled out a letter and we sent it to DOT. We're basically really requesting DOT to take over plowing these roads. They can't be left unplowed. So that's our next best try. John?
The Lake Moxie Road, is that the road that goes up the Deadwater and to?
No, Lake Moxie Road goes from the bridge at West Forks over the Kennebec.
Yeah.
On the Fork side before you cross the bridge, and it goes out to Moxie Pond.
Yeah, and then it
Moxie
keeps,
Falls, oh yeah, it would go down Dead Road to
Yeah.
the water when you go at the end and turn south, yeah. Yeah,
and is that kept open all winter long? I didn't know that.
yeah.
And why?
People live out there full time?
Year round?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All of the assessors for the Forks live out there.
Well, let's not plow them.
Ones that are on strike.
And we're not responsible for that, the bridge that's being rebuilt on the Deadwater.
No, no, no.
It's not our bridge.
Once you make the corner and turn south on Troutdale Road, private.
Yeah.
We're basically right to where the Moxie Pond, actually, we're between the Forks town lines.
And
If you figure out an arc, we have the middle section of the arc. The two lower ends are in the Forks.
And I'm looking at the list of roads that are part of the TIF district.
Yep.
Are all these roads that you've discussed part of the TIF district?
Yes, yes.
So
We basically took every single county road
And made it
we're
part of the
responsible
district.
for, and many of the private roads that we thought were important enough.
Yeah.
And put them in our TIF district.
So do we look to TIF for the maintenance costs for these?
No, all the maintenance and the snow plowing is budgeted. That's one of our normal budget routines. The only problem.
But building bridges and.
Oh, the bridges you're talking about in Lexington?
Well, yeah, the back road, that's a. TIF.
Yeah, we have a bridge account, capital bridge account. It's got $293,000 in it. So the work we're looking at getting done will fit in the money we have now. So we don't need to look at other funds.
But maybe I should reserve my questions for when we talk about TIF, because as I read this TIF stuff, we're supposed to spend TIF money on fixing up TIF
can't.
property.
We can't.
could.
We picked up a section of the northern road that was privately held and not maintained, and basically in the spring, sometimes our ambulance and fire trucks can't get up that road. So we managed to acquire a mile of that road. We did the first rebuild of that mile section last year using TIF funds. We're gonna finish it this year using TIF funds. And we also worked on speaking of the Lake Moxie Road, we used that money last year. We rebuilt our section of the road. First, we tore it up, reclaimed it, and we paved the whole thing between us and the fort. But the shoulders were not desirable. They were too low. So we actually used TIF funds last year and built the shoulders back up so people can pull off the road if they get a flat tire or something.
I guess the only question I'm raising or point I'm making is that I don't understand the dividing line between when we spend this sort of free TIF money that's for the roads as opposed to using taxpayer money for the roads.
It's all taxpayer money.
If I could interject there, so just remember, there's two pots to this community benefit and the UT TIF.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm talking about.
When I'm talking about creating structure for applications, that's just community benefit.
I understand that.
The UT TIF is actually part of Dave's budget when he creates the budget for the state. And I don't know if the new commissioners have done that yet, because that was done at the end of the year last year.
No, they haven't.
They haven't got to that yet.
So you'll see where the
Robert
TIF spending
Stitt
is
So-
factored into the budget when he submits his UT budget in a few months.
Yeah, I have to do two budgets. I do the UT budget, and then I do a separate TIF budget. The TIF money can be spent in a lot of ways, such as roads, but it's primarily an economic development fund. Christian could give you a good rundown on that, because we try to stimulate the economy by funding anything in UT, a lot of the snowmobile business.
Well, I know it is a go-to snowmobile funding source.
Yeah.
But as I read the founding documents for it, which I've spent some time studying,
Yep.
it seems like road building and road maintenance is a major part
Yes.
of what we spend. And so what you're saying is, in my UT budget, I have this pot of money that comes from TIF that I build up for capital improvements on roads. I understand that perfectly. I don't know where the line is drawn, and
The way it usually is if it's a normal problem that we can predict, and we know this road needs more gravel added to
Yeah.
it. So we have some major road project every year. We usually have a 5-year plan, and as we go across, we renew it. So we know we're gonna pave a certain road, we know we're gonna do some culvert repair, replacement. So that goes in the regular UT budget, because we know it's coming up. If we're getting into TIF funds, it's because it's more of an emergency situation that we either didn't budget for sufficiently or didn't know about it at the time we did the budget. Because I have to put my budget together this fall. It's got to be finalized in December and sent to Augusta. But that budget I finish doesn't even apply until July 1st. So I'm at least half a year ahead of the actual use of that budget. So the TIF funds are usually used as economic stimulus, or we do some first responder stuff with it. We bought heart monitors and things like that.
Yeah.
For the fire department in Rockwood.
I'm just looking at what I got from you, which is the
Yeah, that's
the final budget for TIF.
Yeah,
And it says $20,000 for capital costs for road water system improvements. there's different categories.
Yes, yeah.
All with the same, is that something we actually follow, or is that
That's just the
aspirational?
basic
in nature?
guideline. The numbers that are in it it's a formula. So
Yeah.
every line or every column in there is percentage.
But do we actually spend this money like this? I don't,
No,
don't,
there's a lot of
okay.
lines there we've never funded.
okay.
At the time that was developed, you had a lot of people wanting to put their 2 cents in.
Yeah,
And
well, this looks like it was developed on December 7th, 2022, so.
that was the numbers. The numbers were then. But the actual accounts or the categories were done back in, I think, 2014.
So we don't really pay a lot of attention to this? It's-
No, that, we
All
can,
right, I got it, okay.
anything
I have
that
no problem.
fits, and most things will fit in those
Yeah.
categories.
Okay.
We don't go out of bounds, you know.
I understand. No, it was confusing to me. so.
Yeah, it's the way it's broken down, seems like we're spending money on each of those.
Yeah.
We don't. We
Okay,
don't. There's a lot of them that we've never used.
okay, good.
So anyway, DOT, we're trying to get help from for the plowing. Let's see, Long Falls Dam Road. We have people here, I think, Long Falls Dam Road. There's a section of the Long Falls Dam Road, which is a state aid road, which means they do all the maintenance in summertime, we plow the snow, sand, and salt. We have our contractors do that. There is now a request from the landowners or the homeowners on that sections of that road that want to have a section rebuilt. State's gonna come in and they're going to shim it with new pavement, and it will be smooth for a couple of years, but there's one section there, it's very rough, actually, it's very rough in a lot of sections. But the rocks are coming up through, and skinning, paving it is going to be good for a year or so, and then it goes right back to the bad situation it is now. They called the state, they talked to DOT. DOT will not fix it on their own. But there is a program in place that is a 70-30 match. We have to come up with 30% of the repair work. We have to handle all the work ahead of time, set up RFPs, contracts, et cetera, et cetera. At the end, and as long as it's been done properly, the state then reimburses 70%. But if we do a mile of the road, an estimated mile of the road costs between $1 million and $1.5 million. So it's very expensive. It's not something we've ever done before. We spend a lot of money on our county roads. So I am not in favor of this. Phil is not, but it's up to the commissioners to make a final decision, and you need to hear from the people that are involved that live there. So what I was going to suggest, and I've mentioned this to Tim and Robert, is to maybe put a workshop at the next meeting. We can get some more details for you, and the folks that are here to speak of that can have their input too, perhaps, kind of a public hearing workshop type thing.
That's an excellent idea. And you also had another, I thought, very thoughtful idea of
Yes.
doing, go ahead.
Yeah, if it is decided the commissioners want to do this, my initial thought was, that means we got to get it done before they pay. And then I had to rethink, going like, not really. If we wait until the pavement, the new pavement becomes rough again, a year or two probably, that would give us time to actually budget the funds over the next couple of budgets so that we won't have such a hard impact on that. So that's what I was thinking, like, if it's your decision that you want that done, then we can plan on the best way to attack the problem that will have the least drastic impact on the UT budget.
The $1.5 million number, where did that come from?
That came from Kyle
So-
Hall.
Private contractor?
No,
Oh,
no, DOT. He is the person at DOT that talked to these folks. They had a meeting up there.
Okay.
Kyle Hall went up to DOT. He spoke with them. He told them about the 70-30 program. I heard about that. I called Kyle. I talked with him about this. So
you know, that is an option, and it's one that we've never done before. I didn't actually know the program existed before. We've never spent money repairing a state aid road. We just deal with plow. But if it's something that commissioners do decide to do, then we can figure out a strategy on how to arrange it to be done.
We don't have the money for that right now, do we?
No, no, and it would take a
That kind of
couple months
answers
to
your
put it
question.
together.
So where is this mile?
From
mile
my
away?
standpoint, it's
Right, Happy
somewhere
Bush.
around.
If you know where the Happy Bush is, it's right around the Happy Bush.
Yeah, a little bit above and below, that seemed to be the rough.
On the flats there, the straightaway?
Yeah.
Yes, right on the straightaway.
And that's state aid?
That is state aid. And if, with your permission, I'd like to speak on state aid, so.
I defer to the chair on that.
Well, I had asked if there was anybody who was going to speak and wanted to reserve time, and nobody did so at the time.
I move for a
I
waiver.
think we can allow you to speak.
I'm hoping he
We're all
answers
interested.
some of my questions before I ask him.
I don't mean to steal Dave's thunder, he does a great job. The million, they just heard this million, $1.5 million.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Ray Pinkham, resident of Lexington Township. I spent 30 years with DOT in the state aid division. 10 years is engineering and design of state aid roads from all of Kennebec and Somerset County. Everything except Lexington and New Portland. Unfortunately, the division I worked for was really big on state aid. We had 8 crews going all over the state in Kennebec and Somerset County. Every town you guys came from, guaranteed we've been there building roads more than 30 years ago now. Everybody's completely, along came, let's see, I can't remember the commissioner, in the early 1990s that abolished the old state aid program, which is a combination of things between the state and the towns. And at one time, I knew every town manager and every selectman in Kennebec County to Jackman. And that's all gone away with the abolishment of the state aid program. 30 years later, they've come to realize that maybe that wasn't a good idea, and they've come up with the so-called CHIP program, which is this 70-30 one that, anyway, get back to state aids. The original, I don't know when it was adopted, state aids were adopted because they were originally town roads, and the state, I imagine through legislature, made them, they needed help, so they made them a state aid road that they would do the summer maintenance as long as the town kept doing the plowing. But the ownership of the road remains with the town, or in the case of Lexington, belongs to the county, the same as all of your other county roads. So I'm here, if his idea of a workshop might be the way to go.
Yeah.
And we're looking, this year on that road, we're looking, like he said, we're looking at, I call it so-called skinny mix. They're doing some ditching currently, and that's going to be pretty good for the next maybe 3 years, and 7 years. If they don't get it done, I just saw something on Facebook, because of the rain, they might not get to us this year. And if they don't, I'd like to invite all of you up for breakfast some morning in March. So you can ride that road and just see what I'm talking about. Because the state doesn't have the funding to come up and do construction like they did before. But our only hope right now is directly through the county, through the 70-30, and if I can prove, I just called Nancy Bowden.
Yeah, I spoke with, it's, yeah.
And even she, her first comment said, no, it's a state road. I said, no, it's a county road under the old program, and it still is a county road.
This is one we've never had to worry about except in winter when we plow it.
It's the only road that you've got under your jurisdiction, a state aid road, that's in that kind of condition. The division that Lexington and New Portland were in years ago were very lax about promoting the state aid program. And henceforth, after 30 years, this is where we're at. New Portland New Portland's got horrible roads, and that's nothing to do with you, but 30 years with nothing happening, through the that so-called law grant, that now it's called Local Road Assistance Program, I think that every town gets money, but they're spending money on the town roads that they got turned, the state aid roads that got turned back to them in the 1990s. Consequently, the main roads are still subject to just that every 7 years getting a skinny mix.
Right, how far does that state aid go up that road?
6.3 months.
Does it Highland Plantation a different
They go
deal?
to the Highland line.
And what happens after Highland? Is that,
It's still a state aid road, but no responsibility of the county.
yeah.
It goes Highland, and then it goes through Carabas, short section of Carabasset Valley to...
They own that? Or do
They own that.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, and then it goes to the Strip County Road from there on.
Yeah. Our top 9.5 miles are strictly county. We plow, we also do all the maintenance. We're actually starting the system again where we are paving it. We pave it about every 10 or 12 years.
Well, I saw $97,000 on that road in the budget, I mean, our warrant. Is that, did we just spend that, or?
That was on, yeah, that was a gravel project on the back.
Oh, okay.
In Lexington.
All right.
Same one the bridges are on that we discussed earlier. That's a major road people live on. And, you know, it's one that we put quite a bit of money in. It's built over a swamp, so we're always adding gravel to get the road back up.
So anyway, bottom line, I don't expect anything to happen today, but I'm going to be pushing through the date and leaning on you people to get it into your UT budget for this coming year. What I propose is at least probably a 3-year raising funds, because you've got to cover the state share also. And this $1 million and $1.5 million, don't even think about it. Put Phil Curtis in charge, and he can build that for 1/3 of those funds.
So I was actually, so, and this might be, you know, in this, an interesting piece for the workshop, and that was, I'm glad you said that, because my experience with DOT, when it comes to bridges, hiring a private contractor, in the town of Canaan, DOT came in and said a small bridge was gonna be nearly $2 million, and we were gonna have to cover half of it in the town of Canaan. We hired a private contractor, they came in and did it for $300,000, and we paid 100% of it and saved, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So of course, we're talking 3 years down the road, so we don't know what the cost is gonna be exactly, but, so, my assumption would be is it's not gonna be $1.5 million. We need to raise substantially less money to make this
All
happen.
6.3, because the major one is that mile section around the Happy Horseshoe Campground. That needs gravel and needs a real reconstruction project.
How about further south on the corner when you come up out of New Portland and go up that hill? That's lumpy gravy in there.
That's New Portland.
I wish.
Is that, so that's the town?
I wish you had charge of that, but unfortunately, that's New Portland.
How far do they go up to?
They just, because of this meeting that we had just a few weeks ago, they have formed a committee, you know, to study what their road projects are, which they've never done before. They just learned about this 70-30, just the same as we did here at the county, so.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, this young lady in the back.
I see that.
I'd like to ask a question.
My name is Kathy Horn, I live in Lexington also. Just a couple things. The first thing you see when you hit Long Falls Dam Road is a sign, rough road ahead. This just is funny, but it is a rough road. The other thing, Wright was not at the meeting, he was in Greece. Am I right?
That's correct.
DOT, when they talked about the 70-30, also said there was a low-interest loan associated with that we could possibly get a loan at maybe 0 or 1%.
UT can't do a loan.
If the county commissioners agreed to taking on that loan for 30%. They threw that out to us. So he was not there, so I know about that.
Yeah, the UT is not able to go into debt, so we can't do loans.
Okay, that's okay.
We've
But
looked at that in the
yeah.
past when we were paving the northern part of the
No, but he did offer it to New Portland and us.
So you said that the road might not be repaired by the state because of weather?
You know, the so-called skinny mix program, just got it on Facebook just a few minutes before it came down, that it might not get to us due to all the rain that we've had this summer.
So,
But if it doesn't get done this year, like I said, the office stands, we've got enough for breakfast.
well, no, I was just thinking if they couldn't do it this year, they wouldn't be able to rebuild the road this year either.
Oh, no.
So,
No, this is
Yeah.
a long-range thing.
Yeah.
I know how the county budget works. What you raise,
And-
approved come December, doesn't come.
I think what David said is that a few years, let them do the skinny, and we'll take the time to build up the funds, and
I think that's
That's
exactly right.
the way to go.
It's going to take several years to
Yeah.
build up funds to do what needs to be done.
but we have some time to do that, so thank you very much, and we'll continue with our workshop at our next meeting.
Thank you very much.
I have two more items I'm going to point out. One goes back to the boiler at the Rockwood Fire Department. I was looking for funding for that. You know, we drained the building account to put the new addition on. But when we sold the school up there, which was partially on our lot, partially on the state lot, when the school was sold, we got about $55,000. That wound up getting put in the community building, which is right next to the fire station. It's in that account. So we can certainly transfer some of that over to the fire station to cover whatever this boiler may cost. So that, I'm just looking at funding because I'm always trying to figure out, how am I gonna pay for this?
How much is a boiler gonna cost?
Huh?
How much is it gonna cost?
$10,368.
10 years ago, that was what we
Installed.
paid to put in the current system. So I'd go half again, maybe double it. So we could be upwards of 20, 22,000.
You're more than doubling it.
Yeah, okay. You're the person in the know about, that kind of
Yeah,
equipment. But we have funds sufficient in another account that can be transferred. And the other thing, and you may see a petition about this because I told them today it's an option. But we've got people in Tom Hegan asking permission for ATVs and UTVs to run up and down the Northern Road. Northern Road, we spend a lot of money on, and we keep it in very good shape. But when it rains, if you're on it with a ATV, you're gonna be rutting it up. So I told him that I would not recommend this. Phil has told me he would not recommend this, but I said it's not our decision. We can advise you of our opinions, and he goes, well, what's the next step? I said, do a petition. You get a petition signed, and then it'll be presented to the commissioners, and you can do either hearing or make a decision on it. But we spend $40,000 or more every year just maintaining that road. That's not counting the capital projects we do on that, adding gravel. We do a lot of work on it, to get the capital work also. And I personally think, and I think Phil agrees, that it would just cause too much damage to have the ATVs going up and down. So, but that's just what I've advised them to this point.
Well, how much do we give the ATV clubs?
Huh?
Do we provide the ATV clubs with any money?
We've done some community benefit grants for ATV clubs, some TIF grants, I believe. The only ATV club that we do a municipal grant with, they do, like snowmobile clubs and ATV clubs do municipal grants through the town they're located in.
Right,
And if you're in the UTs, you have to come to the county.
right.
So there's about 6 snowmobile clubs that do grants through us. There's only one ATV club that does it through us, and that's Rockwood Blue Ridge Riders. And I told the individual that it would be helpful if you could go through the club to do this petition, rather than just the residents up on the Baker Brook Point Road.
Yeah,
That's one of the more developed sections up there, and they're the ones asking because they have no place to go. The ATV trail does not run
anywheres in Tom Hegan. So they would have to travel all the way down to Rockwood to get on the ATV system. So that's why they're asking for use of the Northern Road.
Are there a lot of other people that don't like ATVs on the Northern Road?
Yeah,
Because it seems to me, from my experience, that for every avid ATVer that likes to ram up and down county roads, there are homeowners that dislike it intensely. And
yeah, I
makes it a
spoke
tough
with him
call.
and he pointed out that there's like 300 people that are in the road association. There's two road associations up there because Baker Point Road is a private road and all the little ones off it are private.
Yeah.
And there's about 50 people that had ATVs, UTVs. But the other people, they probably aren't drastically against it because I think the people that live in there aren't going to be raising hell, basically. But once you get on the Northern Road, our stretch is kept flat and in good shape, and people fly on it. We have it posted at 45 miles an hour, but that's a springtime speed. When you get into summer and fall, they're far above that. So I don't think it'd be safe for them. There's no lanes, there's no yellow lines and white lines on the outside. This is a gravel road. We put basically 18,000 gallons of magnesium chloride on this road to keep the dust down. And that can make it a little bit greasy in the rain too.
And at the tune of $40,000.
Huh?
At the tune of $40,000.
Yeah.
So at this point, if we don't see a petition, it's not something that we're gonna deal with?
No.
Okay.
No, I just told them that was the next option if they wanted to follow.
Question for you, as far as Rockwood, the snowmobile turned jet ski, has that been removed from the place it was stored at the repair shop? The snowmobile went through the ice?
I do not have an update on that. I think they asked
Okay.
us about
I've been
that.
bugged about it a couple of times, that I think the shop owner wants it.
Okay, yeah, I haven't heard anything from Dell recently, but no, I haven't done anything about that. I suppose I was waiting for them to remind me one more time.
Oh.
So, they haven't been mentioning it in the last month or so I've moved on to other things.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to remember, okay, who was gonna be responsible for Dell? Was Dell gonna do something with that snowmobile? What were we gonna do with that thing?
It never reached a final conclusion. At one point, I thought
Oh,
Dell
yeah.
was gonna do something with it. For all I know, I'll bring it down here and park it in one of the spots outside. I don't know, really, I don't have an end
Put a for sale sign on it,
for it.
see what you can get.
Park it up by the jail.
Yeah, we can give it to sheriff, I'm sure he can use it.
No, we just put it out in front of the Rockwood Fire Department to remind them,
Yeah. With
Yeah.
a plaque on it.
let's be,
If you remember.
kinda like the old drunk driving stuff.
Yeah, the old
You used to see all that,
stuff, we
right?
can have this wrecked
Yeah.
with a mannequin up there sprawled out. Remind people, slow down,
Yeah, right.
be killed.
Stop borrowing other people's stuff, because it's costing us money.
Dell's learning that one.
Yeah, sure, yes.
Anything further?
No, not
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Oh,
yeah.
Sheriff? Any,
We've been extremely busy. Patrol had 390 calls for service. I want to make you aware of two expenditures we're going to be doing. We had some, so the doors that go into the pods, they're thick glass. It broke. They don't make any of that. They shattered. They don't make that glass or that door anymore. So the alternative is a thick plexiglass, which we're going to go to, will be more resilient, but you have to buy it by the sheet, and the sheet is $6,000. I've been working with the county administrator and Pat, we do have funds to take care of that, we'll be moving on to that project. The other project is the chiller switch on top of the jail, that's what cools, cooling system. The switch has always been bad. They came, replaced it, it lasted about less than 2 weeks. They charged us $1,500 to come. Our maintenance chief was able to get them to take that bill away because it was supposed to be under warranty. But the switch that we're going to be purchased is I am being told, is the newest and the best, and that is a $3,400 switch between, because we have two chillers, right? And again, we're working with the county administrator and finance, we'll be purchasing of that. The fair is going this week. We have, I spoke with one of the board members there above where they were last year, I guess for attendance, and so we've had a couple of incidences inside the fair, mostly dealing with juveniles. We're dealing with them as they come up. And lastly, the chief and I will be meeting next Monday night at the Heartland Board of Selectmen because of juvenile problems that they're having in Heartland.
Mike?
Can I ask the sheriff a question? A pretty major deal going on throughout the state right now with the governor moving illegals out of Portland into motels in Freeport, targeting Unity College. The folks in Unity are very worried about that. Have you heard of anything as far as our county is considered?
Well, I can tell you that for a while, there were a couple of hotels locally that, and I don't know what their status were, but people were being moved, housed there. I don't know if it was low income. I don't know. Again, I don't know what their status was. But if it's starting to move this way, I do know that Cumberland County does have a housing problem for illegal immigrants.
The whole state does. But so one of the concerns was the old facility that's been renovated over here on the Norwalk Road.
Yep, the pool used to be buying it as a pool complex. Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, that's probably just a rumor.
Yeah, so I
You haven't
haven't
heard
heard definitively whether that is being considered or not.
Okay.
Any other questions for the sheriff?
How did the glass break? Was that an inmate incident?
Was not an inmate incident. Apparently we had, what I'm being told, with the cameras, I guess, substantiate is that someone's wedding ring hit this glass just right and it shattered.
Wow.
God, you jinxed that marriage. Was it attached to a fist? Well, sorry about that.
That's too bad. Chief?
Either titanium or
We're looking at a
tungsten.
couple applicants, seriously, right now. We've given them conditional job offers, they got background investigations, polygraph, psychological interviews, physical fitness tests, physical stuff like that. Got a lot of testing they gotta do for potential control applicants. Both of them live in town.
Any question for the chief?
Oh, yeah.
What's it looking like in terms of interest of experienced officers?
We've had a couple apply, and in fact, we had a new one apply yesterday that we're going to interview, that lives in the southern part of the state, who's a police academy graduate from the state of Hampshire,
Yep.
who's interested in the position there, so.
So, I guess the other part of that question is, you're running into walls with vacation times and different things as you try to bring in experienced people because they've got packages that are,
Not yet, because
Not yet.
we haven't interviewed any of those people yet.
okay.
The ones we've interviewed so far are very clean.
Right.
Equal experience in all those. So we haven't had applicants yet.
Any other questions? Thank you. Mr. Pike?
A couple of personnel things of interest. Corey Swope has been away from the office now. This is week number 6, attending to some personal matters. So we've been scrambling as an administrative team, keeping operations running smoothly. We currently have 6 corrections officer vacancies. Still are getting applicants, and we're
interviewing and onboarding as quickly as we can. We've had a run lately where we'll schedule interviews with applicants and they won't show up. That's kind of been the way things have been going the last couple of weeks, but we're still diligently working to fill positions. The tasers are now in full use on each shift. Each shift supervisor has been issued a taser to them upon completion of training. The sheriff and I worked early on to craft a taser use policy for within the secure perimeter. There are a lot of limitations on deployment within the jail, simply because, you know, it's already a confined space. These people are already confined, so you don't have the wider discretion to deploy it like you would necessarily on the street as a patrol officer. To that point, and this really, you know, somewhat serendipitous, I guess, we did have an incident last week in intake where an inmate got a hold of an edged weapon and did take a swing at a couple of our security staff. Fortunately, there were no significant injuries, but that's certainly one of those incidents where a taser would have been very helpful to have. Unfortunately for us, the shift that was on at the time hadn't yet completed the taser training. So 2 days later, we got it. Now every shift has tasers on shift, and thankfully so, especially in light of what happened last week. And the last thing, we did just purchase some new, speaking of electronic, equipment for transport, and also to help update some equipment that had aged out. So we have two what are called rack belts. They're used for high-risk prisoner transports. It's a belt that the inmate wears around their midsection. It has a remote control that the transport officer can hit and deploy that belt in the event of an incident. The one that we had dates back to when the jail opened 15 years ago. I'm told the average life expectancy of this equipment is roughly 10 years. So we're well beyond our lifespan. They don't make those anymore, so they don't have any support or service or parts for them. So we purchased two new ones. They're rechargeable. And we also purchased a new shock shield for incidents inside of the secure perimeter. Again, the one that we have is original to the jail. It's broken. Again, there's no more parts or support that you can get to the existing model. That total expenditure was $6,600. Part of the contract for purchasing this equipment is we have to train up a staff member to be an instructor on how to properly use this equipment. So we've booked Charles Healy, our transport officer, to go to Colorado next month to attend the 2-day training to become certified to teach us all how to use this equipment once it comes in. And that's it.
Questions? Okay, thank you very much. And I think we're all set with our department heads. Unfinished business, the non-new business, resolution 23-172 to appoint a commissioner to serve on a state claims commission hearing Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. Is that October 20th?
Yes, October 25th.
Okay.
That's, you see in your package the email there from Richard Estabrook. I believe the property owner is from Fairfield. I don't know if that's fair or not. And this may or may not happen, but
Right.
they just need to have somebody appointed and use a space. And so I've checked with Mike Smith, and we can provide the space over at the comm center
Yeah.
if this meeting takes place, and just, we need to have somebody appointed.
Any volunteers?
That's not our meeting day, Wednesday.
No,
No, it's the second or
your
Fourth.
meetings are the 1st and 3rd, so I think the 25th will be the 4th.
fourth, yeah. So,
Well, I don't know, do you want to do it, or?
I can do it, I think I'm available unless somebody else has a burning desire to do that.
Well, I would do it.
That would not be me.
I'd rather do this.
I have a cold desire to do that.
I'm sure I would volunteer to do it.
Okay, that'd be fine.
sure
I'd be happy for you to do
If it's Fairfield, I don't know whether that,
It's not a conflict of interest for me, it's a corporation. It's property where, the UT? I can't,
It was Warehouser.
The Warehouser was
property,
one of the
but
property owners.
Did it actually say where?
well, I volunteer to do it.
thank you, yeah.
Well,
Do you have to
something
appoint me?
like
Do you have to vote me in, or is it good?
To a point, so, is there a motion to appoint
I'll make that a motion.
Commissioner Alsop?
to
I
appoint
second
John.
that.
All right. I'll put it on my calendar.
And just for,
It's a one-shot deal.
it's a one-shot deal. And should something happen,
Today.
you want to appoint me as a backup?
Yeah, that's good, too.
Yeah.
A lot can go
Put
wrong.
that in the same motion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'll appoint John Alsop with,
Commissioner Cezak as
yeah,
backup.
Robert is a second.
As the rain date.
Second, yeah, it's a rain day. So we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Unbelievably in favor. It's about time to do something right.
Okay.
Just get me out of
And Resolution 23-173 to accept the resignation of dispatcher Jen Davies from the Somerset Communications Center.
So,
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? And Resolution 23-174 to accept the resignation of Corrections Officer Jacob Scalen and Corrections Officer Brandon Crone from the Somerset County Jail.
So moved.
second.
Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Capital Reserve expenditures, none, unorganized territories, warrants. Resolution 23-175 to approve the treasurer's warrant for general fund, Somerset County Jail, and unorganized territory. This is the whole thing we gotta read, or?
I would move that we accept the
total?
total of $644,473.93. We approve that, and that we approve without reading the other numbers by reference as they are printed on the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay.
Beat me to it, I was all over that one.
You got it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
And the one
Look at you, you just-
I'm going to go to Resolution 23-176 to accept the vehicle bid.
I'll make a motion to go with Height Chevrolet.
Second.
Only because there's $472 difference, and we'd use that up the first time we had maintenance done on it.
Did I hear a second?
I second that.
It was a whole-
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Unanimous.
And Resolution 23-177, the compressor bid
So moved.
Second,
for the price that
as stated.
Yes.
stated. Discussion? All in favor? Let's go.
It's again unanimous.
And now we go back to...
Can I just backtrack a little bit, if I may? I just think the record should be clear on our accepting the height bid, and and I agree with SIP that I think we're doing that because we think that our proven record of service with our local supplier is something that we add into the mix in making this decision, and it far outweighs the $472 savings we would make by accepting the slightly lower bid.
So noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Up to P, miscellaneous discussion items, commissioners only. Anything?
I have two things.
Two things.
First one, I'd like to congratulate Denise Ducharme as the new town manager. I think she'll do a good job. And the other thing is, where's Mike Smith?
I haven't spoken to Mike, so I don't know if he's off today, or,
Oh, 'cause usually he shows up.
he is usually here, but
Yeah, I was wondering how he was doing on the PPE building.
Patrick's been on vacation, and so we'll probably give him
Yeah, well, that's
a report
fine.
in September.
We'll catch up on it. That's it. That's all I got.
Anything else? Okay.
No.
Anybody else? Nothing?
Working.
All right. There are no executive sessions, so we may adjourn.
Love it.
49.
Hey, Dave. You want that,
No, I just thought you'd be a lot more familiar.
Yeah,
just
Oh, I haven't even seen it yet.
I'm trying to get enough lifespan. That doesn't have any kind of warranty or guarantee that I can find.
no, even on here it says years of dependability, it says lasts a lifetime.
Yeah, that's where I got the word lifetime from.
Yeah.
That's a term that.
I can call FW Web, because they sell these,
Okay.
and I've got to call them anyway on, find out if I can.
Yeah, it just, it outlines it actually quite clearly.
Yeah,
I'll
I
keep that.
called, I think probably they called back when I was up here.
Could be.
We've done business with A. Robinson quite a bit, although we did switch to Paul and Smith.
Oh, you get your own.
Just gotta go back the other way
That
when
makes
you're done.
sense too.
All right.
Because you have to always look at who's going to be available with warranty work service. Here you go.
Yeah.
You have to look at that.
That's the,
Yeah, that's
Flynn thing.
Ian Robinson, A.E. Robinson. You know, we went with them, we received some other bids.
Well, you can look, as far as propane service people up in Jackman area, you're probably better off going through A.E. Robinson anyway.
That's for
because
sure.
they have multiple people.
Yeah, they've got, it's pretty much even from each direction.
Yeah.
Because A. Robinson's bigger, they have benzene dump, that's where
Yeah.
our help comes
No,
from.
see, that makes sense.
But they've got Bill Foxcroft and Dexter and.
yeah, I think with the St. Albans thing,
But I just was curious because.
I would just, for me,
10 years.
is the sweeter the deal they come in with,
Stuff.
Yeah.
the more I obviously favor, I'm just one of
I can't
those,
believe how big that.
I gotta see that they've got a nickel in it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I mean, it's not.
Just-
Although I see
It's not
that
Lakewood or something.
if you're
But
like
it's still a
comparing
pretty
it to
good sized
the
pond.
Yeah.
weightlifting
it's
room
not
in Binghamton.
really- You see
I mean, this
little
is
bit of
such
it from where the
demonstrably
stream runs
worthy
through and the
program
bridges
to
down
increase
in-
healthcare
Yeah,
capacity
that
in the
goes
county.
between-
I don't doubt their good faith.
Can't think of.
Oh, no,
I don't have.
Right, but
It'd be nice
it's,
to get
again,
there.
it's one of those,
You sort of feel like the town, so.
Yeah.
At her house last
Yeah, so-
night with.
so as you're learning to be a Republican,
A
right?
couple other.
It's in the blood.
Is,
Yeah, I've never been on
yeah,
that
it's just
pond,
what,
but I
it's,
have
so one of the experiences
been to
in
the far
Canaan,
side
right,
of it,
in Canaan, I mean,
far
I'm
side
sure we
of
put in
the
for some
camps are
grants and
that
those
are in
kind of things, but
Lexington.
for the most part,
That's where I
And
was.
when
it
I-
is such a
yeah, I
benefit
went up
to our
in there, and
community
they
that we
rebuilt
were
the
willing,
road
you know,
After someone.
spend the money,
who,
so,
and
I don't-
Years, he eventually
I don't think,
died.
I don't,
But they
I don't
renamed
see
the
where they're
road,
gonna
tried
have
to readdress
issue, I
everybody,
don't
so
know,
I was
maybe.
pushing
They're saving all kinds of tax money up there right now because they
I'll
have
middleman.
zero office staff, there's no town government staff.
But I went on, where's this? St.
St. Albans.
Because I had it on my thing and I couldn't find it.
Really?
You know,
It's gonna take a long time.
It's it's your couple of citizens there that are running people.
Was that from the COVID?
No,
You go in, there's a cemetery sign.
yeah, there's a couple of citizens, which I'm very friendly with both of them,
I'm on the left.
that are just not very skilled with dealing with people, and they have run everybody off, is what they've done.
Something.
What happened is they ran one guy off, then all the work got piled on these couple, they were stressed out, then they ran them on, and we, I mean, to our
Passing it on you,
benefit,
there-
and now in Canaan, my wife is now working with one of the big people in the world. that we
There's a
hired.
couple of them that were on
We're
every,
now looking for road
Yeah.
commission.
I can't remember the name of it.
This is in support of my fantasy argument of one big town. You
Yeah.
can take a lot
They
of
used to have a
towns that
sign there.
can't find people to do a good job there and can't find.
I wonder if that's
run everything.
I wonder if, you know, in the south,
Somerset
that's how
County-
it works with.
yeah, this-
the counties have
Somerset
way
County
more
is the size of a, quote, small town in the
When they
United
called
States.
me, contacted.
We have
renaming
population.
the road.
You have a hard time finding
Initially,
people
going
that
Conroe
are, to
was
volunteer to
Portland
do,
and Lexington.
like the
And I
Cornville
addressed
town
everybody up
officials,
until
it's
Conroe.
a
Yeah.
And then
full-time job
because they
what they
wanted
do.
to
Oh, yeah.
dedicate-
And all the mandates that the state handed down on everybody?
Remember,
It's crazy.
But,
Yeah, you don't want,
your town, don't take me wrong, but
them
I'm
using
not trying to
that
insult your
out
town, but I-
I'm gonna get out and about.
It's hard to find people to do it, and then you get
I don't
these
know
chiefs,
any
and
of
sometimes
these
they get a little bit
places are.
obnoxious and power crazy, and,
Well, and that is, that was actually one of the points
Yeah,
that
come along
the
Old
Page had
Dam
made,
Road
you know,
to the city,
consolidation.
agriculture campground.
We're so independent minded, the whole
Yeah,
rules, like,
yeah,
Maine,
yeah,
home rule,
yeah,
and everything
yeah,
else.
I said,
But I
pay
mean,
attention
fiscally,
and
it just
see where
makes
I think
no
it's wrong.
sense to not consolidate wherever you can. I mean, we tried to do it with,
I'll take a ride up there
one of the
again, I wanna
things, so
go
the
there
town
again.
calendar, they don't even have a
Turn
fire
around
department.
and pitch, you go through all of this, shut down.
We'll just pay you and whoever comes and fights our fires, we'll
So I'll take a ride.
So when we have the fires,
I
we're not
might even
paying
take some
anybody.
orange paint
we should give them either to Newport or Pittsfield.
and jump out of the truck.
No, they're
circle
happy
around
with
some of
the
these
system they got.
walls.
And actually, it helps Heartland, because Heartland is, in a lot of cases, one of the closest. I mean, Canaan, we've got to cross from Pittsfield to get there, but I mean, we're usually on mutual aid, Newport comes in, that kind of thing. But I mean, like with Heartland, they can have a bigger department and actually have newer equipment, because they actually, they're like mercenaries.
What happened, I
Mercenaries,
went
you know,
by the fairground,
towns can do without it.
there,
I mean, there's,
you got Maine,
yeah, it just makes
motorcycle
no sense.
group there, United Bikers of Maine, this week.
We're talking about, I know people
They
are
have a
talking about
state
going to it,
wide there.
going to a town.
Well, I went by, turned around.
we're leaning
too, on
towards
the
a,
right, there's a place in there, there had to be 35 campers, all in a
administrator.
What we
line.
do is, we ought to have.
Yeah, I don't know what they're
Canaan
there for,
Cornville
maybe they're
Town
waiting to get in the fairgrounds.
Yeah,
Have-
maybe.
have
I
both-
hadn't,
both
I
towns.
rarely go to the village.
Right.
So one of the things that
We
we're looking
have three
at,
towns with one administrator.
well, so the administrator that we're looking to do would actually be
So that way-
administrator
Yeah,
slash
up in
treasurer.
Long Dam Road or over
Type
to
of
the boundary.
Well, it's a very dicey area. People
It
get
is,
really-
oh yeah, oh yeah,
I just gotta
right.
make the.
Well, the thing is,
subject.
do you, I mean,
Once in a
do you
while.
know the selectmen and all?
Yeah, I'll just
Do you-
turn my mileage.
Yeah.
Well, the guy, Mel Blaze.
Mel, yeah,
I know him very well.
Mel's been around forever.
And he does a good job.
Does he? Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things is,
When he was
like in
claiming
Canaan, and
miles
it's not just the
to
current selectmen,
I
because
saw him.
two or three of them are my friends. I've
Traveling for.
the past board, I think I helped elect all of them. Anyway, it's just, there's so much to know. And there's so many things, so many new mandates that the state passes down. Full-time property tax stuff and everything else. Yeah, and it's basically a volunteer job. So
Now that I think of it.
they don't know what they're doing. In a lot of cases, they just don't.
Bill, of course.
Oh, we are-
A lot of miles. He's all over the place checking on
Yeah.
my contract.
Yeah, it's a tough
So.
one. Now, changing the
The
subject,
most.
Yeah.
I am
So I gotta get a hold of Phil sometime.
1 mile
I
out
gotta go
of
meet you
basically
somewhere, and
24
you
miles.
have to do some of these
And
rides.
sprucing it up.
You always come back here, or do you?
No.
I have been driving
I'm
up and down
working
that
up in the
road.
field.
Since I was
Usually I
camping
don't come
camp.
down.
I worked up there for 6 months and.
Yeah.
Sometimes the road is good,
Unless you're gonna
sometimes- But I think it's any different now than it was 30 years ago.
I don't know, I mean, to be perfectly, I haven't driven on that road in a couple of years, but when there's boulders coming up through the road, you know, that's actually a problem.
You're
But
paying a
yeah,
lot.
I mean,
Mine's 1,300.
And mine is a condo.
so one of the things that, yeah, I mean, we're dealing with this in Canaan, I don't, and I'm not willing to frickin' step into that frickin' firing squad. Is like in the neighborhood, I'm off the backside of a subdivision, so I gotta actually go through an existing neighborhood to get to where I am. And that road, we got together just 20 years ago to get that road
Had
paved.
walls on the wall.
And basically, there's been nothing done for it ever since, and it's just all falling apart and everything else. So, I mean, there is a point to,
Spirit world.
you know, before the thing goes completely to junk, and basically you gotta rip it all up and just either go with dirt or,
Well, they're.
you know, completely new pavement.
Last week, I could throw it down.
Oh, yeah?
They're really
My district.
spiritual.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, I go out.
They had to actually-
Maybe they should put a poll there.
That's what I.
Yeah, make the users pay.
Exactly, I'm all for user
Yeah,
pay.
right, pink is his brother, Buster.
I tend to be very.
He runs the Happy Horse.
Unsensitive to things.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of pink conventions.
My sister,
Yeah,
though,
oh, yeah.
totally.
Wright used to be the county administrator years ago.
Oh, really? Okay. Super smart guy, worked for DOT forever, so.
So was Bill, Buster.
It's for the.
Well, time to go home.
It is,
I
it
think
is.
for the assessment meeting at 94.
Oh, I didn't know.
As they have the next town office.
So, yeah, this whole, you know, Biden's illegals that he's letting flood across the border. So Steve Robinson's got frickin' video, so down in Portland, not only, you know, they've been housing them in the expo, they've been $200-300 a night.
They were complaining about it, too.
$200-300, yeah, they were complaining, we're not being treated good enough, right? But there's some of them that are standing on the street down there shooting up in public, because Portland has made it a no enforcement zone.
Is that out by the arterial or something? I saw a picture.
I'm not sure exactly where it was.
It's not really a good situation. Oh, yeah. I don't know.
You think?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It really kind of was a shock to know that he drowned.
I mean, half of them are not illegals.
We'll see
They're
you
just
over.
homeless.
Huh?
There's a
Well,
lot.
not half of them, no, a vast majority of them are illegal.
Next meeting.
Oh, there's no question.
That are living
There's no
out-
question, actually, so Steve has done the radio. You mean? Oh, yeah, well, so, of course, one of the things that's happening, and this comes from the homeless shelter people, which is, that's a frickin' shame to begin with, but anyway, right, well, that's the thing, is they displace the actual homeless people that from the area. Well, but we're spending $200 and $300 a night to put them, anyway, so they're, we have actually per capita, right, 1.3 million people, we have a worse, by percentage,
Ratio.
per capita ratio than Massachusetts and New York, which they've called for state emergencies, and we're in worse shape than that. So they're trying to pay off or coerce, like Unity College, they've only got like a third of their normal enrollment. It's been really kind of going
Yeah,
down,
that's-
so they want to put a whole shitload of them over there.
Well, they're trying to sell the campus. The campus is for sale. They're trying to do something.
Yeah, so.
That's
But it's not good, because unfortunately, these people they're from a different culture. They don't understand our laws, they don't obey, all that
Yeah, there's a
stuff.
tremendous assimilation problem, but you know, you go to Lewiston and there's a lot of Somalians there just.
Right,
normal-
different situation though, those Somalians didn't come across the border.
No.
These people are from all over the place.
Yeah.
And down in South America, they're opening the prisons, and letting the prisoners out so they don't have to pay for them.
So you should be supporting an aggressive foreign policy that helps these countries out so these people stay where they live.
You know, that
Disincentivize them.
Are you being sarcastic? No, I'm not. Okay, so this goes along with.
You're not, we try. Oh, you know, hold on. Not allowed to. Oh, you're going to the United States here. Go away. Take your hand. Yeah, please. Oh, here's the bus.